Okay, so here we are once again with another Mcfarlane Super Friends unboxing. Get a look at that nice artwork on the back there. This is Toyman. Oh man, we're going to have a lot of things to say about this character. This is going to be a fun episode. All right, so Toyman comes with a couple of accessories over here in the flare. We see the infamous Legion of Doom communicator device that we've gotten with like pretty much every Legion of Doom figure so far. And he also comes with his very own Superman action figure. And I'm guessing since this was the late 70s, this cartoon came out, this would be Mego's Superman action figure. It does look like it would be about 8 inches in scale with Toyman. It does look like it would match up with that. Maybe it might be the 12-inch figure, but who knows? So yeah, he comes with an actual Mego Superman. So let's go ahead and open him up. We've been over the packaging on these several times. And here recently in the Flash episode, I would have talked somewhat about this packaging again. It is nice packaging, I will say that. And then we got to get the trading card off of here without messing it up too much. They got it taped all the way across the top on this one. And so there's been a few different versions of Toyman in the comics, Winslow Shot being the most prominent. We had one that was an Asian teenager, a Japanese teenager. There's the image of Toyman on there. This is based on the Jack Nimball version of Toyman, who I believe first appeared in 1974 and made his last appearance in the comics in 1976, in which Winslow Shot killed him off. Now, that brings to mind the question, if he was dead in the comic books, why did Hanna-Barbera choose this version of Toyman for their Legion of Doom? Well, I have a theory about that. I don't have any evidence about it. I've never seen any kind of interviews or anything that would have made me think that this is the case. But it is a theory that happens to fit the facts, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you it right now, is that I suspect that the reason they used this particular design for Toyman was because they weren't allowed to use very many of the Batman villains. They only had access to 2 Batman villains, which was the Riddler and the Scarecrow. And originally, before the Filmation New Adventures of Batman cartoon series became a thorn in their side, initially the idea was that they were going to have in the Legion of Doom the Catwoman, which I talked about in the last episode, and the Joker. So I kind of suspect that maybe they went with this design of the Toyman rather than the Winslow Shot version because they wanted him to kind of fill the role of the Joker. Now, of course, he's a much different character from the Joker. Like the Joker isn't obsessed with toys, but he's still that kind of he still fits that kind of archetype. He's wearing a jester outfit. So Bobby Wald is here, and he says if Jack Nimble died in the comics, Jack must have not been that quick. Yeah. Well, he was killed by Winslow Shot, who's like this Benjamin Franklin looking dude. So, it is what it is. I don't think I've ever actually read any of the appearances of Jack Nimble in the comic. I should check those out. But I know he made a few. Like I said, he was active in the comics for about 2 years, and they killed him off like I'm pretty sure that if I remember correctly, Challenge of the Super Friends aired in 1978, maybe 1979. Let me look that up real quick on my spare phone. I was smart enough to bring it over here with me this time so I wouldn't have to rely on the computer's slow internet of the Super Friends. Challenge of the Super Friends. I believe it aired in 1978. It might have been 1977. It's on the images. Because I was looking up. No, why are you doing that now? Might as well look up on your Challenge of the Super Friends. Okay. Yep. Aired from September 9th to December 23rd, 1978. So yeah, it aired in 1978. So that means they probably had enough lead time that they knew that Jack Nimball had been killed in the comic book, and yet they used this character anyway. And they might have just thought, well, they kill off supervillains in comics anyway all the time, so it doesn't really make much of a difference. So this one, like the Flash, reuses a lot of parts from the Riddler, and it looks like it uses the same, probably the same forearms as the Flash, the same lower legs as the Challenge of the Super Friends Riddler, the same belt that we saw in the Frank Gorshin Riddler, but he's got this new cowl piece and this new neck. So I don't even know if this is technically like the same torso. It's definitely based on the same sculpt as that torso, but since it's got like a whole different neck piece that's glued onto it, I think it might be a new mold and obviously a new head. Now, something that I always thought was interesting about this is the way that his nose is drawn. You can see it's very pointy, very straight, very flat, and obviously it is supposed to be drawn as being part of his mask, but the way they always colored it was they always colored it in flesh color, like that Caucasian skin color, and made it look like it was part of his skin, like his actual nose. So we'll look up Jack Nimble again. I want to look at what he looked like in the comic book. Let's see. There's a drawing of him by Kurtz. Why do you keep doing that? Now it went back to the Google homepage for whatever reason. I have to type this all over again. All right. Yeah, it looks like in the comic book, Kurt Swan definitely drew the nose to be part of the mask. I'm looking at Kurt Swan artwork right now. And it looks like sometimes it's colored in that flesh color, and sometimes it's colored blue. It's like they couldn't make up their mind. But if you look at the way that Kurt Swan drew it here, it's definitely supposed to be part of the mask. It might even work pretty well to make it like red or a completely different color like that, so that way it would look like a clown nose. Now here's another Kurt Swan drawing, and I think he drew his nose to look more like an actual nose there, but you see there it's colored in blue. So, who knows what it's supposed to be. But usually on the cartoon, it was colored in the same Caucasian flesh as the rest of his skin. And he's got the kind of happy looking eyes. He's a sinister looking character. He's got a black cowl with a little bit of blue on the top. And if we look at the way that it's drawn in the comic book, I think the blue is supposed to be just a highlight, like it's an all black cowl, and just the blue is where the light's shining on it. But on the cartoon, they drew it like the cap of it was actually blue and all the rest was black. Bobby Wald says, I honestly don't know this character unless it's the same one from that Gray Ghost episode on Batman. Yeah, I count that character as being a Toyman also. I definitely consider that character to be another version of Toyman. And speaking of the Jack Nimble version of Toyman, there was also the character of Funhouse on Brave and the Bold that was clearly based on Jack Nimble, but I guess they didn't have the rights to use Superman villains at that time, so they called him Funhouse instead. But yeah, going back to that Gray Ghost episode, Bruce Timm provided the voice of the Mad Bomber, and also drew the character to look like himself. So that character is like is based on Bruce Timm, and of course they had the version of the Toyman on Superman the Animated Series with the creepy doll head. That's probably actually my favorite version of Toyman. But when they brought that character back, I believe it was Bud Cort that did his voice on Superman. But when they brought that character back on Justice League, Bruce Timm did the voice of Toyman himself. So is it the same character that Bud Cort played on Superman the Animated Series? Or is it the Mad Bomber who has now appropriated the Toyman identity? Or maybe they were always the same man. Who knows? It's a mystery to me. But yeah, he's got the same shade of purple on his boots, so that's consistent. It's kind of it's a bluish purple, but it's definitely blue. Now, if we look at how he's drawn in the comic book, you can see he's got orange pants with pinstripes, black pinstripes, and then he's got dark blue boots. This guy has brown pants with purple boots. And looking at it on the cartoon, I always thought that was blue, but it's definitely more on the purple side here. Now, as far as the orange pants in the comics go, a lot of the times orange is supposed to represent brown in comics. Not a lot of people understand that. They just take it literally as being orange. But back in the day when the coloring wasn't so consistent, a lot of the times they would use orange to represent brown. That's why Wolverine's second costume, the brown and orange costume, it's actually supposed to be a brown and tan costume, not a brown and orange costume. That's the intention. But people look at it literally and they think of it as being orange. That's just how it is. So anyway, while Jack Nimble might not be the most prominent version of Toyman in the comics, I would say that he's been a lot more successful in terms of action figures than Winslow Schott. I really can't think of that many action figures of Winslow Schott as the Toyman. There might have been some that I missed, but I don't know of any offhand. I can't think of any offhand. I'm pretty sure the animated series version of Toyman has had at least one action figure, maybe two. But that one isn't technically supposed to be Winslow Schott. That's supposed to be the son of Winslow Schott. Although I suppose he could be Winslow Schott Jr. And then there's like I said, the one where there was a Japanese teenager. They turned Winslow Schott into a serial killer type character. And when somebody decided to bring back Toyman, they decided it wasn't worth getting back into all that. So they just made up a new Toyman character. And then eventually, I think it was Jeff Johns came up with the story that retconned it so that the serial killer of Toyman was actually a robot duplicate that Winslow had made of itself that had gone off programming and went nuts. So they did retcon that away eventually. Bobby Wald says, I just want to see a supervillain chasing Superman with a couple of squirt guns of sunblock. Well, Condiment King already has squirt guns, doesn't he? He would just need to mix the sunblock in with his mustard and ketchup, and maybe he could actually defeat Superman. Who knows? Batman would have to come along and save him. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the articulation on this guy. And if you've seen any of these videos, you're pretty familiar with how this articulation works. But I'm going to assume at least one person out there is watching one of my videos for the first time. And this is how it works. So he can look up about that far. Toyman can look down about that far. Tilt his head kind of quizzically from side to side. I love that this guy's got good head articulation because he's a character that I think really benefits from it. Of course, the head rotates all the way around. I don't think these are necessarily designed to have the up and down movement. So any up and down movement you get out of it is a bonus as far as I'm concerned. Toyman's arms rotate all the way around at the shoulders, although he does have these big flared shoulders on his cowl, and also the shoulders even underneath the cowl, like the Riddler. They're kind of flared out too, but they do rotate all the way around. The arms move up to the sides about that far. Toyman has a single joint of articulation at the elbow, bends in about that far, rotates all the way around, and then the wrists rotate all the way around. And he's got one gripping hand and one solid hand, even though he comes with two accessories, and he can only hold one. That's typical for these. Something I noticed about Toyman's communicator also, while we're talking about it, is the other two communicators that we had in this this assortment. You can see that they are a bright, shiny silver, whereas Toyman's is just a dull gray that's not metallic at all. I'm not sure why that decision was made, but it's a decision that was made. So we can go ahead and put the communicator in his hand, although his fingers are really rigid, but I managed to get in there. So there he is, calling back to the Legion of Doom headquarters. I want to raise Luther! I want to buy more toys! Yeah, so he had the most annoying voice, didn't he? I think it was Frank Welker doing the voice. It might have been Don Messick, I don't know, but he had this really high pitched, he was almost like a childlike kind of voice, which fit the character, but man, it was annoying, wasn't it? I would say maybe that's why they killed him off in the comics, but like I said, they killed him off in the comics before he even appeared on Super Friends. And here he is with this Superman action figure, no doubt with some kind of nefarious intentions. He's maybe it's a super voodoo doll. Maybe he shrunk Superman down to doll size. Maybe he's just having fun with it would be cool if he came with other dolls, other figures of other Super Friends characters. It would be cool if he had two hands that could hold stuff, and then he can make Superman and Batman kiss. Weird shit. Like he's just a pervert. Anyway, let's get back to the articulation. So Toyman rotates all around the waist, of course. He's got the same belt as the Riddler, like I said, but it's got that sort of stripe slash belt buckle design on there. If we look at the way he was drawn in the comic book, go back to that. This one, yeah, it looks like in the comic book the way he's drawn is that it just tucks straight into the pants, and there's no belt there at all, at least in that drawing. I don't know. It seems to me like they weren't that consistent with his design. Here's a cool piece of fan art. I forget. Phil Cho, is that this guy's name? He's a really talented artist. There's his design of Jack Nimble. This guy I met at a con a few years back. He's a really nice guy. Terry Huddleston. He's really cool. But anyway, where was I? So yeah, going back to the articulation, you can see that his buttocks are not sculpted onto the trunks, so we can move these legs back a little bit. He can do the splits, no problem. Jose Membrane is here, and he says, what the holy moly kind of figure is this? Well, it's the Toyman. This is what Toyman looked like on Super Friends. This is the Jack Nimble version of Toyman. It is not the Winslow Shot version of Toyman, which is why he does not look like Benjamin Franklin or a serial killer. And he doesn't have a doll head because they hadn't decided to make him creepy and cool like on the Superman animated series yet. But yeah, he's a pretty accurate representation of this character. He's got a single joint of articulation at the knee. That's about how far it bends at the knee, and then it rotates all the way around. So I would have to say that out of all the characters in this assortment, Toyman is the most niche. Like, I think anybody who's a Wonder Woman fan is going to want to have the cheetah, and anybody who is a Flash fan obviously is going to want to have Captain Cold. Toyman, like, you could be the biggest Superman fan in the world and still not know that this guy exists. Like, unless you watched Challenge of the Super Friends, like me when you were a kid, you probably don't even know about this version of Toyman. He only made a few appearances in the comics. He's very obscure. And I noticed that a lot of Superman fans these days, they're really only familiar with like the post-crisis version of the character. That's the only one that's really relevant to them, unfortunately. Because there's a lot of great Superman comics going back to the Bronze Age, the Silver Age, the Golden Age. There's a lot of great Superman comics out there to read and discover. And like I said, I'm a huge fan of Superman. I've never actually read any of the comics that had Jack Nimble in them. So I kind of want to go back and read those comics now and kind of familiarize myself with that version of the character. But I was really familiar with him from Challenge of the Super Friends, where he was a member of the Legion of Doom. So I think that probably more people are going to want to have this figure to complete their Legion of Doom than to complete their Superman villain display, if you know what I mean. Because he's probably thought of more as just another member of the Legion of Doom than an actual Superman villain. But he was a Superman villain, and he might not have been one that lasted for very long, but he was indeed part of the rogues gallery of the Man of Steel. Jose Membrane says the tiny Superman is adorable. Lol. Yeah, I agree. It's a great little accessory. When you have a character like Toyman, you want him to come with some toys. And I know, like, I want to say that the DC Universe Classics version of Toyman, yep, that's another. The Toyman in DCUC is Jack Nimble. The Toyman in the Justice DC Direct, the Alex Ross line, that one's a Jack Nimble figure, even though Winslow Shot was actually the main Toyman in that, and the Jack Nimble version was just a puppet in that version. But they made an action figure of the puppet. It was really cool. Had really good articulation. But yeah, while Winslow Shot might be the most prominent Toyman in the comics, Jack Nimble is definitely the king of Toyman action figures. And to someone who is a Toyman, as Winslow Shot is, that's got to be a real stick in the eye. You know what I mean? Like, like he's got to be bitter that Jack Nimble gets more action figures than him. But anyway, that's our Superman villain that we got out of here. Superman had probably more villains in the Legion of Doom than anybody else, between Lex Luthor, Bizarro, the Toyman, and Brainiac. So hopefully we'll be getting all those guys in this line. I would definitely like to get Brainiac and Bizarro. And hey, since they got Superman, they can just use that body for Bizarro, right? Just make him a new head. That's all they need to do. Make him a new head, print the S on backwards. We're done. So yeah, going from a Superman villain to Superman himself in the next episode, we're going to open up Superman, and as a bonus, I have the Platinum Edition Universe of Evil Superman, the evil version of Superman. We're going to open these up both at the same time. Now, I was thinking that this was going to be a simple repaint of the standard Superman figure, but no, they actually did give evil Superman his own head sculpt. So that should be fun to talk about. I really hope they get around to doing all the rest of the Universe of Evil, the super enemies. I would really like to see those. But yeah, next episode, Superman. Don't miss it. If you want to make sure you don't miss it, please make sure that you like, subscribe, all the fun YouTube stuff down below. Hit the little bell. Is the little bell still a thing? I haven't seen the little bell in a while. I miss it. I hope it's okay. I hope it's doing well. I hope it's spending time with family and friends. But yeah, then we're going to be done with Super Friends. And I don't know exactly what I've got set up for next week. But hopefully we got some good we definitely got some good stuff coming. Hopefully I'll be able to do the stream with Captain Half-Fun that we've been trying to do for weeks now. But scheduling is always a mess when it comes to me and him, because we are not on the same schedule. So we're both having a hard time with that. But you know, it'll happen eventually. And when it does, I'm planning on doing that group of multiverse Superman figures around that, because I got a bunch of Superman figures I want to open up. He and I were going to open up Superboy, and then I've got a lot of other Superman related figures to open up. I got the movie version of Lex Luthor. I got the black suit Superman from just right before Rebirth. Got a lot of cool stuff coming. I did put in my order from Big Bad Toy Store, so I've got a huge order coming from Big Bad Toy Store that's going to have lots of G.I. Joe and lots of Masters of the Universe. So any of you out there chomping at the bit for more G.I. Joe and Masters of the Universe, I know Max chomping at the bit for more Masters of the Universe the other day. Don't worry. Got plenty on the way. I've even got some more Marvel stuff to open up. I know Marvel stuff hasn't been that prominent on the show, but you know, it's not that I don't like the Marvel stuff. It's just they don't really put out as much stuff as I need nowadays. Like you know, it just is what it is. But anyway, that's it for this episode. I'm gonna go take the picture of the thumbnail. We'll be back next time with Superman. Hope to see you there. Hope you enjoyed it. We will talk to you next time. Make sure you like and subscribe. I might as well say like and subscribe one more time, since YouTube likes it when I say like and subscribe. I'll go ahead and say like and subscribe. So that's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. We will talk to you next time. Bye.